What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plizont's podcast, filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes so cold that they're boiling hot. Today's podcast is proudly sponsored by Hungry Howie's Baton Rouge. Guys, check out their website for takeout deals and delivery deals. Right now, they've got a large one-topping pizza for just $7.99 when you order carryout. Thanks again to Hungry Howie's Baton Rouge. Today, we're doing a Q&A, guys. It has been a while since we've done our Friday Q&As, but we are getting right back into it. We've got NFL, NBA, and a little college football. So let's go ahead and get started with the first NFL question. Is CJ Stroud's S2 test going to drop him in the draft? Now, CJ Stroud scored an 18% on the S2 test, which is like a cognitive testing system that NFL scouts use to see how fast quarterbacks can respond. It's kind of like an IQ test, but it's a little different. It's more about responsive rates and not really about like whether or not you have a high IQ or a low IQ. CJ Stroud scored an 18%. For example, other quarterbacks like Bryce Young scored up in the 90th percentile, so pretty large difference. I think that CJ Stroud threw this test. I've seen no indication that that's happened. That's just my assumption. The reason I'm assuming that is because 18% is a very low score. And based off of what I've seen on tape, it just doesn't connect with his play versus his test scores. I think that he threw because he does not want to go to the Houston Texans. I think he knows that Bryce Young is going number one overall. And the Texans, 3 reasons. 1, have been a dumpster fire. 2, they're not ready for a good quarterback. And 3, their GM may be insane. That's just what I have to say about that. I think that Stroud doesn't want to go there. He wants to go somewhere like the Colts or the Titans or even maybe the 49ers or the Packers. But we'll get into that later. But yes, like I said, CJ Stroud definitely threw that test. Next question we've got up here. Will Jalen Carter fall in the draft? And if he does fall, where will he land? To me, I don't think Jalen Carter is going to fall. The NFL does not do a good job of holding players accountable. Jalen Carter was charged with a couple of misdemeanors. He pled no contest. There's not going to be any type of real punishment for him in the court system, and therefore NFL teams are not going to punish him on the field. So I think that Carter is going to go somewhere between the 5 and the 6 range, Seahawks or Lions. This guy is probably one of the best talents in the draft, right outside of Will Anderson and maybe Bryce Young. Jalen Carter, not going anywhere. The reason that he's not going to fall is because of the system that the NFL has put in place. I mean, Kareem Hunt, I think got 8 games. Deshaun Watson, who is accused of sexually assaulting 26 people, only got 11 games. Carter is not going to get punished falling down the draft because of that. Now, he's got some maturity issues, but NFL teams have seen maturity issues over and over and over again, and they keep selecting these players. It does not matter to them. I think the Seahawks or the Lions, most likely the Lions are going to take him in the draft with the 5 or the 6 pick. So I don't think Carter's falling at all. Next question. Should the Texans trade for Trey Lance? I have seen some rumors about the 49ers shopping Trey Lance around the league. They're not calling anybody, but they're taking calls from teams about Trey Lance. Now, the reason that I see that this is happening is because they see a problem with Trey Lance. They do not think he's the quarterback for the future, and they're trying to dump him off. This says a lot because they traded 3 first-round picks to get him, and now he's had a catastrophic injury, and apparently he's got some maturity issues. So I think the Texans should probably stay away from that. However, if they could somehow get him for a 3rd or a 4th-round pick and then trade their 2nd pick and their 12th pick and get maybe 4 firsts this year, why not let it fly? I think that the Texans could do a great job of drafting other skill position players. I always think it's a major risk being a dysfunctional team and drafting a young quarterback early because then you have to have that quarterback be the savior of the franchise. That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy. And if you don't like Stroud, Richardson, or Will Levis, then I don't see a problem with trading Trey Lance for a 3rd or 4th round pick. Moving on, next question. What are my thoughts on Jameson Williams getting suspended for 6 games for betting on non-NFL football at an NFL facility? So that pretty much explains what he just got suspended for. He was betting on college football in an NFL facility. He got caught. The NFL has decided to suspend him for 6 games. 2 things I think about this. 1, I think that he should not have done that. I don't think that he was unaware of these rules. The NFL has seminars and lectures on all types of rules and regulations that they have around the facilities, what you can and cannot do. I'm sure that he was aware of it and just did it anyways. But secondly, I think this is a stupid, stupid rule. Now, obviously, NFL players should not be betting on NFL games. But if you want to bet on the NBA, college football, the NHL, MLB, why not? Why is the NFL deciding to restrict here? The second thing that I want to say about this part is, of all the things for the NFL to start putting their foot down on, gambling is the one. Not domestic violence, not cheating, not steroids. Gambling? I mean, look, I am all for restricting gambling advertisements and stopping predatory gambling companies from taking more customers in when everybody is experiencing gambling issues. But this is what you draw the line on? Somebody betting with their own money on college football. Terrible move for the NFL. Look, I don't think they should change the rule if they don't want to, but at least punish the guy for maybe a game or 2. 6 games compared to these other things that you're suspending players for. That's a terrible precedent to set. So either change the rule or change the punishment. This next question to me was probably one of the most interesting that I got. Who had the best NFL offseason? To me, it's the Chicago Bears. I think that the Bears had a really good offseason because they took the number 1 pick, flipped it to the 9th pick and other first round and second round picks, and they got DJ Moore, a number 1 receiver for a young Justin Fields. Now with the 9th pick, they can bolster their offensive line, support their defense. They're in full rebuild mode. They also traded away Roquan Smith last year, but in free agency, they got Tremaine Edmonds, which is a pretty good replacement for Roquan Smith. But last but not least, they're signing complementary players to this offense. They signed Donta Foreman and Robert Tonyan. I think those guys are 2 instrumental role players in a young and growing offense. They bring veterans, leadership, etc. You name it, they have it. I think that the Bears did a good job this offseason, and they've got to continue in the draft to make it the best offseason in the NFL. All right, we've got a few more NFL questions. This next one, is Bijan Robinson worth a top 10 pick? To me, it's only in very limited circumstances that you take a running back in the top 10. 1, this guy is a generational talent. 2, it's a pretty weak draft. There's not a lot of talent outside maybe the top 15 guys. And 3, the team that's going to pick him meets all the criteria needed to get a running back in the top 10. So those criteria are, they're lacking a running back, they've got a really good offensive line, and they've got good weapons and a decent defense. And guess who has all of those things? The Philadelphia Eagles with the 10th pick in the draft. I think this is a really good pick for them. Outside of maybe the Buccaneers, I don't see any other team in the first round that should even consider taking Robinson. But like I said, this guy's a generational talent. The Eagles have exactly the team that they need outside of running back. I think that taking him at 10 is a great pick because it gives them yet another playmaker on that awesome offense. I think they could be the best offense in the league next year. So yes, I think taking Bijan Robinson with the number 10 pick is a great idea. All right, this next question is personal, not really personal to me, but just, something that I take personally. The question is, should Tua retire? To me, I think that he should. I do support him in not retiring. I think that he can continue to play and play at a great level like he did last year. However, each time he goes out on that field, he is risking catastrophic injury and concussion. Now, he is not different from anybody else in the league who goes out on the field. They're all doing that. However, he has had those catastrophic injuries and multiple concussions. I do not think it's smart for him to continue to do this because these next few injuries or concussions could be life-altering. He's already generational wealthy, and he has a great personality that he can take into any other part of football, whether that's commentating, front office work, or coaching. I think Tua is multifaceted. He's extremely talented in everything that he does. I think that trying to move on from football sooner rather than later is a really, really good idea. On a much more lighthearted note, let's talk Who are the best players in fantasy football next year? I'm going to go through and give you each best player at each position, starting with quarterback Jalen Hurts. This guy's going to have another great year. He led the league last year in fantasy points per game, and he didn't lead overall in fantasy points because he missed a couple games, but don't expect that to happen again. Jalen Hurts is going to dominate, and they might even have a running back to help him out. I definitely think that Hurts is going to probably lead the league in passing, and he's going to probably lead quarterbacks in rushing yards. So Hurts at quarterback is a great idea for your fantasy pick. Next up, running back. This is a freezing cold take, so cold that it's boiling hot. I think it's going to be Tony Pollard. I think that Mike McCarthy is giving him the keys to the offense. It's clear that the Cowboys are better when they run the football, and now that Tony Pollard is the featured back, he is going to tote the rock. Next up, wide receiver, easy pick for me, Justin Jefferson. This guy had a dominant performance last year, the year before that. He's still young, and he's still Kirk Cousins' number one, and that Vikings offense is becoming more and more reliant on him. He's going to get a lot of targets, a lot of catches, plenty of yards, and dozens of touchdowns over the years. So I'm going with Justin Jefferson at wide receiver. Tight end, Travis Kelce, another easy pick, especially because that Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core is so weak. Kelce, once again, is getting high receptions, high yardage, a lot of red zone targets. Kelce, easy pick for tight end. Last but not least, we're talking defense. I'm going with the Miami Dolphins. They've got an elite defense almost at every single position. You find a great player. I think these guys are playmakers, and most of all, I think they're going to get a lot of turnovers, a lot of interceptions and forced fumbles, and their special teams unit is pretty damn good. So I'm taking the Miami Dolphins as the number one defense in next year's football, and that is all of the fantasy football players that are going to be best at their position. Moving on into the realm of college football, I've got one question, and that is, who is the most likely non-quarterback to win the Heisman this upcoming year? To me, it's a very easy pick. Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. This guy was the top wide receiver prospect in this year's draft. Not eligible, but still. He is going to absolutely dominate. I thought he was going to go for close to 200 yards in the college football playoff, and he's definitely going to have a repeat this upcoming season. Similar to Jackson Smith and Jigba, when Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson were there, everybody was still talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now, with Jackson Smith and Jigba going into the draft, everybody's talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. These Ohio State wide receivers are just getting better and better, and I think he's going to have a dominant season next year. And I really do think he's got a good chance of getting to New York, but I don't know if he can win the Heisman because it's a quarterback award, but that will be my choice for non-quarterback to win the Heisman. Okay, now we're moving into the NBA, and I've got a lot of questions. Let's go ahead and get started with the first one. Who is going to the NBA Finals as of right now? Today is Sunday. So who is going to the NBA Finals as of right now? To me, it's a repeat of last year. Warriors, Celtics in the finals. Here's why. In the East, you've got Giannis hurt. He's not going to be 100%. Embiid is hurt. He's not going to be 100%. I don't see a threat from the Knicks or the Cavs. So the Celtics, as long as they can win this series with the Hawks, which I think that they'll very easily do, can get to the finals on a pretty easy path. In the West, I think that the Warriors are trying to revive themselves. They are looking pretty good, but they've got to get through a tougher slate of competition. But once again, I don't think the Nuggets are ready for a finals run. I don't think that the Grizzlies or the Lakers are ready for a finals run. And I think that the Suns don't look nearly as good as everybody thought they did, and it's because of their lack of bench depth. So Warriors versus Celtics in the finals, that's who I see. Next question. I appreciate it. I always love when people ask me of my personal opinion, not just about one specific question, but kind of a broad thing. What are your thoughts on the NBA playoffs? Now, to me, I think this is some of the most competitive basketball that we've seen in the NBA in a long time. And it's only the first round. I have enjoyed almost every single game that I've watched. The only series that I haven't paid close attention to is the Nuggets versus Timberwolves. That's because the Nuggets are up 3-0. But all these other series, highly contested, really interesting games. Even the Nets versus 76ers was really cool to watch because I think that Mikal Bridges is going to turn into a star. I've really never seen this much parity in the NBA in terms of where the finals are. The finals are wide open. And the amount of teams that can get to the finals, it's not shrinking. It's expanding. More and more teams are becoming finals contenders after each and every game. So I am very much enjoying these NBA playoffs. Next up, is Ja Morant the next Derrick Rose? Now, to a lesser extent, I think that this is correct. I think that Derrick Rose had some catastrophic injuries that completely hindered his play for his entire rest of his career. I don't think that Ja Morant is going to have that, but I do think he is going to have knick-knack injuries all throughout his career that are going to prevent him from contending for playoffs, contending for MVPs, etc., etc. And it seems to be a very common case of just hyper-athleticism. We're seeing it a lot with Zion, and a lot of people are talking about, Zion at 260, 70 pounds. It's not humanly possible for him to move like that. I really don't think it's humanly possible for someone like Ja Morant to move like that. It's not that he's overweight at all. He is actually skinny, but to jump that high, to come down, to make contact with players like that over and over and over again, you're just putting yourself in harm's way. It's very dangerous, but I completely understand that that is his style of play and that he will always play like that. And I think that's what's going to end up costing him playoff success, regular season success, and personal success. This next one was a really shocking question, and not really because of the question, but more along with the news. So let's get into it. Did Nick Nurse deserve to get fired? This is completely out of the blue. Did not see this coming, but now that I look at it, I think there are 3 reasons why the Raptors decided to fire him. Number 1, Kawhi Leonard is no longer there. The NBA championship window is completely shut. It's now time to develop players, and I don't know if Nick Nurse did a phenomenal job of doing that. Number 2, there are plenty other coaching candidates out in the market right now that I think could do a very good job with the Raptors. And number 3, Nick Nurse didn't have a lot of success out of that one finals run. And in that finals run, I really think that the Raptors won that series because Klay Thompson tore his ACL and Kevin Durant tore his Achilles. I don't think that series is even close if both of those players are playing at full health, obviously. But Nick Nurse did win that championship. He deserves credit. He also won Coach of the Year. He deserves credit with that. The Raptors did make a similar move like this a few years back when they fired Dwayne Casey literally right after he won Coach of the Year, and they hired Nick Nurse, and then they won a championship. Could the Raptors do that again? I really don't think so, but do they need a new coach? Possibly. To me, Nick Nurse seems a lot like Brad Stevens. I don't know if he's going to be like a really good head coach, but he's a brilliant basketball mind, and I do think that he's going to get another opportunity. So, did Nick Nurse deserve to get fired? It's questionable, but I would say yes. This next one, controversial question, with a Plizont freezing cold take, so cold that it's boiling hot. Does the NBA have a charge and block problem? Now, that was the question, but I'm going to add on to that and add in a screen problem as well. I think that the NBA has all 3 of these issues. Blocking fouls and charges are extremely subjective. You don't know when a player is moving, not moving in a way that's going to be a block or a charge. The NBA needs to either make new rules to make it more objective or take it out of the ref's hands and have players learn to play within the rules that are currently set. The second thing that I think needs to happen is the restriction zone under the basket needs to be expanded. We have already seen 3 major crash and falls in the NBA playoffs that have caused 2 major injuries and 1 potential injury. Joel Embiid, Ja Morant, and Giannis. Those guys literally all went up to the basket. There's a guy right under them that tried to take a charge, undercut them, and it ended up causing Giannis and Ja Morant to get injured. And that's affecting the playoffs. That's affecting your basketball product. So do I think that the NBA needs to change that rule? Absolutely. Now with moving screens, it's horrendous. As a Warriors fan, I know that Draymond Green sets 1,000 illegal screens every single game. The NBA either needs to call it like it is or change the rule because right now they do not add up together. So I think that is another major problem that the NBA should fix. All 3 of those issues could really change the way that we watch the game. So I'm all for the NBA changing those rules. Now, this next question had me thinking a lot because I wanted to provide as much context as I could behind why I think that this player is being criticized in the way that he is. So let's get into it. Is Stephen Curry the main reason that James Harden does not have a ring? I think James Harden is the reason why James Harden does not have a ring. But it's not for why you think. It's not because of his out-of-shape issues. It's just because James Harden is a regular season dog. This guy played 82 games twice. He played 70 or more games 5 different times. He played so many minutes. From 2013 until now, he has played the most minutes in the NBA at 26,000. That's an insane amount of minutes for one player. His usage rate within those minutes was number 1 in the last 13 years, and it's not even close. Russell Westbrook, LeBron, or Steph Curry didn't even come close to James Harden. Now, the reason that he never got a ring was because of that exactly. A lot of minutes in the regular season and a lot of usage in the regular season. When it comes to the playoffs, it's really hard to give it your all when that's all you've done for the entire regular season. I commend Harden for doing that, and it won him a couple MVPs, but he never got to the finals because he was exhausted by the time he got to the playoffs, not because he was out of shape. I really don't think that was an issue until later in his career. You can just see the burnout, and that's why he had so many game-clinching, playoff-clinching games in the postseason where he did not perform in the way that he really needed to. So I think that James Harden's regular season play was the main reason why James Harden never got a ring. Couple more questions. Let's talk about Russell Westbrook. Will this Clippers versus Suns series completely change the narrative around Russell Westbrook? Absolutely. Personally, I've always admired Russell Westbrook and his game. He never was a player that was overly critical, stubborn. I mean, yes, he had some issues on the Lakers, but I would put that more on the Lakers than I would Russell Westbrook. This guy, to me, is a hero in basketball. He is a great father, a great leader, a great teammate, charitable, and he's always available for everyone to talk to in the media. I am a big fan of what Russell Westbrook represents. I'm also a big fan of what he has always been, and that's unapologetically him. His outfits, his charities, his family, and his team have always been top priorities for him. You never really saw him in the limelight of some scandal. So Russell Westbrook, I am so glad that your narrative is changing thanks to this series. I hope everyone continues to give you praise, and I look forward to seeing you in the Hall of Fame. This next question is not because I'm a LeBron fan. It's because I am looking at this as objectively as I can. I know that I'm biased, but we're still going to answer the question. What do the Lakers need to do to qualify this season as a success? To me, it's already a success. Now, I know every Laker fan out there is going to say the only way you can qualify this as a success is if you win a championship. But look at where the Lakers were. They had Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverley on their team who did not mesh with the rest of the Lakers roster just because of who needs the ball and like defense and everything else that has to go with what kind of players those are versus what the Lakers needed. And they traded them away. They started 2-10 with like a 90-something% chance to miss the playoffs, and they ended up 43-39 in the playoffs. Now let's talk about 3 huge reasons why this is already a success. Anthony Davis missed 26 games in the regular season, and he was really not playing dominant basketball in the first half of the season. 2, LeBron James missed 27 games at the end of the regular season, and it was really, really hard for the Lakers to mesh together right before the playoffs started. And last but not least, the Lakers made literally the biggest roster move that I've ever seen at the trade deadline. They basically traded away their entire starting and bench lineup for a brand new one. They got D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, and Malik Beasley. Those guys are playing instrumental minutes in what the Lakers are doing now. And I think that this season is a success because you're building for the future. Do I think the Lakers can compete for a title next year? Absolutely. And it's because of the success that they had this year. And that's going to do it for this episode of Plizont's podcast. Guys, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button, the comment button. literally shoot us a DM. We do these Q&As. We're trying to do them every Friday, but if not every other Friday, your question will be answered. I promise you that. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.